Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a literal geopolitical earthquake, mapping out the unprecedented global economic ripple effects stemming from this August 2026 Iran crisis. We're going to break down exactly what's happening on the ground, who the major players are, and most importantly, how a stalled conflict halfway across the globe is actively rewriting the rules of international trade and honestly impacting your daily life. All right, let's just jump right in. On August 19th, the current sitting U.S. President, Donald Trump, who is now serving in his second term in this August 2026 timeline, issued a sweeping declaration on Truth Social. He announced Operation Economic Fury, stating flat out, "This will be economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale." He explicitly warned that any country allowing its businesses to throw Iran a lifeline would face tremendous economic consequences. So we're talking about maximum financial pressure here with immense global stakes, threatening secondary sanctions on any nation that doesn't fall in line. Here's our roadmap for The Explainer today. We'll start with Trump's economic warfare campaign. Then we'll look at the UAE trade suspension, Iran's decades of resilience, the massive China enforcement dilemma, and finally, the global economic fallout. I promise you, by the time we wrap up, you'll see exactly how Washington's policies connect the dots between Middle Eastern reactions, Asian superpowers, and your very own wallet. Okay, let's start with Section 1, Trump's economic warfare campaign and the escalation in the 2026 war. To really grasp the gravity of the president's announcement, we have to quickly look at the geopolitical context that brought us to this exact moment. So this 2026 Iran war actually kicked off back in February with US and Israeli strikes on Iranian facilities. Since then, it's basically been a stalemate. We saw a ceasefire announced in April, another one in June, and both of them quickly collapsed. Israel largely pulled back from direct fighting, leaving this persistent US-Iran standoff. Now, with no active talks happening, which President Trump himself confirmed, the administration aggressively pivoted in August to this economic strategy to try and break the diplomatic logjam. Because, frankly, the reality on the water right now is severe. Iran has kept significant control over the Strait of Hormuz. And why does that matter? Well, think of it like a global artery. Roughly 20% of all globally traded oil has to squeeze through that single choke point. On August 19th, the literal day of the president's announcement, only 9 commodity vessels actually managed to transit the strait. 9! A major global supply route is essentially blocked. Which brings us to Section 2, the UAE trade suspension, or how a key domino falls. How did the region respond to this sudden escalation in pressure? Well, almost instantly. Take a look at this number, 30%. Historically, the United Arab Emirates has been a huge trading partner for Iran, operating as a vital financial gateway. Based on World Trade Organization data, back in 2024, the UAE supplied over 30% of Iran's imports. We're talking a relationship worth around $21 billion. But just hours before President Trump's social media post went live, the UAE totally suspended all commercial and financial transactions with Iran. That is a massive, immediate blow to Tehran's economy, and it really proves that when placed under direct threat, regional actors will comply. That takes us to Section 3, Iran's decades of resilience. So with the UAE cutting ties and Washington threatening total isolation, how is the Iranian government actually handling this? It's a fascinating contrast. On one side, the UAE immediately capitulated following accusations about an August 18th missile incident. But on the flip side, the official Iranian response was just absolute defiance. Tehran completely dismissed Washington's economic threats. In fact, Iranian officials brushed off the announcement as mere psychological warfare and called it a diversion from America's own domestic debt issues. And this isn't just empty talk. Remember, Iran has weathered continuous, punishing economic sanctions for nearly 50 years, ever since the 1979 revolution. They've spent decades building these incredibly sophisticated, off-the-books networks just to evade sanctions. But here's the catch, and this leads us straight into Section 4, the China enforcement dilemma. If you're going to threaten to sanction any country that does business with Iran, you have to deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The limits of this economic warfare become glaringly obvious when you look at who the primary buyer is. According to 2025 data from the analytics firm Kepler, China buys more than 80% of Iran's shipped oil. 80%! You can announce blanket secondary sanctions all day, but they are an absolute nightmare to enforce when Beijing is the primary customer keeping Iran's economy afloat. This basically creates an impossible trilemma for the current US administration. First, there's energy dependency.
China is the world's biggest oil importer. If the US actually forces a cutoff of Iranian oil to China, global oil prices are going to violently spike. Second, rare earth leverage. China is a huge exporter of vital rare earth minerals to the US. Pushing economic warfare against Beijing risks crippling retaliation against American supply chains. And third, evasion infrastructure. Independent Chinese refineries have already been told by their government to simply disregard US sanctions.
All right, Section 5, the global economic fallout. Let's bring all these grand geopolitical maneuvers directly down to earth, because the stalled war is already reshaping your daily cost of living.
The financial toll here is just staggering. This war has already cost the United States over $200 billion. That kind of massive spending has sparked serious infighting in Washington over funding bills. In fact, former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen explicitly warned that this war is severely complicating the Fed's mission to keep domestic inflation in check. And over in the energy markets, wild swings. We saw a severe 55% surge in Brent crude oil prices right after the war began in February, leaping from around $72 up to over $112. And even now, as of this August 2026 declaration, it's still hovering dangerously high, sitting right around $92 a barrel. So what does that actually mean for you on your morning commute? It means U.S. gasoline prices have jumped back up above $4 a gallon, hitting levels we haven't seen since late 2023. Now, President Trump has noted he isn't overly worried if gas prices go up, stating if they rise, keeping his focus strictly on this maximum pressure strategy. But for everyday consumers, that impact is undeniable. And it's not just energy, folks. The ripple effects are spreading way beyond the gas pump. Blocked shipping in the Gulf means an impending food crisis. Get this, Gulf countries produce about 45% of globally traded sulfur, which is a critical ingredient for agriculture. Because of the war, nitrogen fertilizer prices are projected to roughly double, and phosphate prices could jump by 50%. The UN World Food Program is already sounding the alarm on a long-term global food price crisis. So it's not just your gas tank taking a hit, it's your grocery bill too. And amidst all this economic chaos, there's some seriously sketchy stuff happening on Wall Street. A Financial Times investigation uncovered massive bets that were just perfectly timed to the war's developments. The most insane one, a staggering $950 million bet on falling oil prices, was placed on April 7th, just shortly before a ceasefire was publicly announced. Someone, somewhere, is making massive geopolitical wagers right before the news hits the public. So, as the US escalates this conflict into an unprecedented financial offensive, I want to leave you with this question. Will sweeping secondary sanctions under President Trump's Operation Economic Fury finally force a diplomatic breakthrough and bring Iran to the table? Or, by threatening vital partners and massive economies like China, will his strategies simply fragment and break an already fragile global economy? Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Keep an eye on the markets and definitely keep an eye on the street.